guaranteed not to be on iRacing. Welcome back to IndyCar. It's season preview season on Motorsport 101.
You know, I had exactly, not the same execution, but the same basic idea for an intro.
Did you not see that Motorsport Games has pulled themselves out of their financial debt? It's a working miracle, and they've posted an actual screenshot. It's totally not just assets that they have and rendered an R Factor 2.
Yeah, it's a great sign of progress. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the comedically named episode 420 of Motorsport.
We are smoking that Indy 500 double points pack.
It's delicious. Wait, the double pack no longer exists. More on that later. But welcome to episode 420 of Motorsport 101. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, Dre Harrison, and it's season preview season here on Motorsport 101. We're starting a little bit early because IndyCar and Formula One, for some silly reason, decided to start the same weekend this year. Way to go, fellas. That was very clever of you. Anyway, let's get into our 2023 IndyCar season preview right after we say hi to our hosts. First up, Cam Buckley. How's it going, man?
It's going, you know. Still don't really like walking right now, but, you know, is that it is.
Is the groin in recovery?
Not really.
We're getting there. Plenty of massages. Also, we have
Finally, I'm back home.
Good to have you back in the US of A. How was Dubai, my friend?
Dubai was good. So is Abu Dhabi. You know, after a fortnight of Asia Le Mans Series, I know everybody now under this format wants to call it the Middle Eastern Le Mans Series or the ELMS Winter Series and whatever. That's fine. I like the racing. I had more fun than I thought this weekend. I got through 2 whole weeks of coverage without mentioning Nikita Mazepin's name once in any written materials on any race reports or anything like that. I got to stay in the hotel at Yas Marina Circuit. That was pretty fucking cool.
The big glowy one.
The big glowy one.
That's awesome.
They'll actually change the lights. Like one of the teams requested to do a photo shoot at night, and they asked the hotel, "Hey, could you change the lights on the outer shell of the hotel to match the color of our car?" And they did that.
That's so cool.
It also helps that, I don't get to stay in 5-star hotels that often, especially not on someone else's bill. So, hey, I'm going to enjoy it. I came away with this thinking that, rightfully so, that bad F1 races at Yas Marina Circuit are an F1 problem, not a Yas Marina Circuit problem. Yes, I know the circuit's very sterile and not always that fun, but I enjoyed the racing there. I had a good time, but I'm also glad to be back home. I'm not glad to be jet lagged, but, we'll work through
it. I mean, you say that, but F1 at Abu Dhabi is the most talked about subject every week. Wonder why. Usually
it trends for completely unknown reasons. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the 2023 IndyCar lineup, a little bit of Indy Next, not the wrestling promotion, their new feeder series as well, a bit of the calendar, and all of the runners and riders in one of the largest IndyCar seasons known to mankind. I want to say 27 full-time cars?
27 full-time entries. Holy shit.
It's the biggest IndyCar season I can remember since I became a fan. It's a huge roster. We're not going to waste much time before we get into it, but places you can find us real quick are on youtube.com/motorsport101, facebook.com/motorsport101. We're on Twitter at motorsport_101. And if you want to follow our personal handles, you can at Dre_WTF1, at RJ O'Connell, and at CBuckley917. If you're really lucky, so you can back us financially on Patreon, patreon.com patreon.com/motorsport101. $5 gets you early access to all of our episodes. $10 gets you into the supporters club of our Discord server, where you can listen to these episodes live as they're being recorded, like Jason is right now. Shout out to Jason. And all of those details and much more can be found on our website, motorsport101.com. So, without further ado, let's kick off season preview season with the 2023 IndyCar season preview. Okay, folks, you know the drill by now. We're going to go team by team down the grid. We're going to break down runners and riders, team situations, championship finishes from last year, and all the key storylines going into the 2023 season. We'll pause about halfway through for a calendar look, and we'll also talk a little bit about Indy next as well. It's going to be a long one, so get the kettle on, because this is going to be fun. And, well, what better place, or should I say worse place, to start than AJ Foty Enterprises?
It feels like this is how we start every year. And yeah, it's how we start every year.
Well, when we go to these series, like ranking teams from least affected to most affected from the previous season, you know, if we wanted to commit and go like a full urinating tree style haters guide to IndyCar, we'd open by calling this team the Perpetual Factory of Sadness, where budding young talent goes to have their potential crush, and veterans looking for one more shot to prove their worth get sent to the glue factory. Fittingly, in both the NFL and the IndyCar series, that Factory of Sadness has its headquarters planted right in the heart of Houston, Texas.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really disagree with that. I mean, we talk about it every year. Foyt, just no matter who you plug into the driver's seats, no matter who you pick up for engineers, no matter what they have for an engine, whether it's the engine in form or the engine that isn't, they always just kind of stink.
Yep. So break it down this year. In the number 14 car, and yes, surprise, surprise, Foyt has cleared out the decks again. Oh no. Santino Ferrucci's back. Oh, and he's back full time.
The Freedom from Consequences tour rolls on full time this season.
Oh, why? Why are we doing this again?
But don't worry. He's got his big, warm, comfortable, cuddly weighted security blanket here to help him. More on that in a bit.
Yep, and his teammate in the number 55 car is Benjamin Pedersen from last year's Indy Lights season. He had a win there, was top 5 in the championship last year. So he's moved up alongside Santucci in the 55. There's a reason why it's 55. It's worth addressing. It used to be 88. And, well, if you know anything about right-wing politics, you'll know the political association and affiliation of having the car numbers of 14 and 88. How the hell did no one notice that?
Somebody was a big fan of Tony Stewart and Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the early 2010s. That's what it was, right? Right?
My favorite plate track combo, Tony Stewart and Dale Jr. Yeah, I mean, leanings of Santucci aside, they really don't have a lot of excuses on ovals, do they? They have Michael Cannon and Santino Ferrucci, who, as much as we roast him here, and as much as he's pretty mid on road courses, he is pretty good at the whole oval thing. Not that there's a whole lot of those on the schedule anyway, but I digress. And Pedersen is
fine.
He's fine, but when you look at Kyle fucking Kirkwood last year, with the most glittering junior record going into IndyCar that we've seen in years, and he did, well, a whole lot of nothing other than overdrive poor equipment and crash said poor equipment. What is Pedersen going to be able to do?
Is it Peterson or Pedersen? Is it Pedersen? We'll figure it out.
Feel free to roast us in the comment sections of wherever you get this podcast.
Sure.
He's a very interesting case either way. His main background comes from, of all places, the leading independent site for rally news and features, and that would be Dirtfish, and he took one of their performance driving schools earlier in his career. You know, he's also a guy who is so rooted. He is so much a Seattle dude that he probably carries a 12-man flag in the cockpit at all times. But
if his rotation in his CD player to be solely Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains.
If they couldn't make Kyle Kirkwood work for them, I'm worried for Benjamin Peterson because look at what happened. Do you remember Matthias Leist?
Yeah.
This is the place where young talent goes to suffer. And the last win for them will have been 10 years ago with Takuma Sato.
Yeah. AJ Foyt Racing loves picking up prototypical AJ Foyt guys who just go out there and thrash a car by the scruff of their neck, take no prisoners, take no shit. Santino Ferrucci is pretty much that guy turned up to 12 with bad hair. But all the other perfect AJ Foyt guys, Tony Kanaan was like that. Sebastian Bourdais was a little bit like that, but I don't. And even after the first year of Takuma Sato, it didn't really work out. I want things to be better for this team, but I it's just tough for me to get optimistic about them until proven otherwise. I have no reasonable reason to be optimistic about this team.
Yeah, I kind of in this they might get some oval results here and there. The problem is there's only 4 ovals on the calendar now. They're thinning that pot down. You're absolutely right. Santino Ferrucci, if say what you will about him, he is an excellent oval racer.
The last 2 years of him being the super sub for various teams had us all shouting like Jesse Pinkman, he can't keep getting away with it!
Exactly. And the last time he raced in IndyCar full-time, which was back in 2019 now, 3 times on ovals he finished in the top 5. The man knows how to wheel it around an oval, and that is something that a lot of teams could do with right about now, 100%. So look, I get it. There will always be a degree of upside in signing someone like Santino Ferrucci for that very reason, but it's still, for me, the weakest team in the field, I think, for overall talent. Him and Benjamin Pedersen's fine, but he didn't set the world on fire in Indy Lights. He got
better as the season went on, at least. He wasn't terrible. But again, it goes back to the point of if you couldn't make Kyle Kirkwood work for you, exactly. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how you get anything out of Benjamin Peterson.
Kirkwood was arguably the best prospect the road to Indy has ever produced, and he was dreadful on results last year. That's the problem. Kirkwood was the second worst of all the full-timers last season. The only person worse was Dalton Kellett, who was in the same team anyway. And yeah, that's what worries me, because Pedersen is not Kirkwood. And Kirkwood got chewed up and span out, and Andretti had to throw out the lifeboat earlier than anticipated. More on that later. But I do worry about, it's Foyt. So where's the hope and enthusiasm? It doesn't exist. As far
we got excited about AJ Foyt bringing together a young lineup like this. It was Carlos Munoz and Connor Daly. We had so much hope in it, and it all fell to shit.
Yeah, that's even despite picking up Michael Cannon, who, by the way, engineered Scott Dixon for the last few years.
He's pretty good.
If there is anyone on this planet who knows how to engineer a car, especially at the 500, it's him. And I still can't see them getting anything, even on ovals, where I think they will be proportionally stronger than they will be on road courses. Are they going to be beating Ganassi? No. Are they going to be beating Andretti, provided Colton Herta doesn't wipe out his primary car? Debatable. On short ovals, are you beating Penske? Fuck no.
No.
It's just hard to see where they can really steal any big results to get big points on the board.
Should we talk about Juncos a little bit?
I want to talk about a team that actually has upside. Callum Ilott back for his second full season, and Agustin Canapino, rookie out of Turismo Carretera, a series whose history predates the Second World War.
Yeah. For those who aren't quite up in your South American racing, it's basically the Argentinian stock car championship, for what it's worth. And after 15 years out there, he's making the switch to IndyCar because it's got nothing to do with Juncos' Argentinian affiliation. But yes, he's in the 78 car alongside Canamilo in the 77 car. Juncos now has 2 cars for the full season in 2023. Looking back on it, it was a good, if a little unspectacular, rookie season from Canamilo last season. 2 top 10 finishes. Probably would have been in the top 6 or 7 at Laguna Seca if it wasn't for that last engine blowout right at the end of the year. It was a damn shame he qualified on the front row that day. It was really the coming home party for Canapino, and it was completely ruined through no fault of his own. He's certainly fast enough to make more second rounds in qualifying and actually stay in the top 10 next season. And I think Canna will certainly be one to watch in that regard. But there'll be a lot of eyes on Agustin Canapino, a surprise candidate for the now expanding two-car team after 14 years and 4 championships in Turismo Carretera, as RJ alluded to. I mean, RJ, how do you feel about this one? Because I'm not going to lie, when this was first announced, it felt like a bit of a homer pick.
I mean, that's not an unfair assumption. Obviously, Agustin Canapino comes in with very little, if almost no, open wheel experience. He's racing in something that's roughly the equivalent of NASCAR, V8 supercars in Australia, even though they're not V8s, pre-GT3 DTM. There is one
frame touring cars that kind of sort of look like production cars, but really aren't.
Yeah. It's fair to expect that a driver like that is not going to really make much of an impact, but Dre, there is one problem with that worry.
Oh,
he wasn't shit in the preseason test at the Thermal Club in California.
Oh, he was actually quite fast. Yeah, well, the thing is with that, RJ, is that those are bespoke racing cars. They're not like it's not, and not in the sense of like how NASCAR is, where they're actually heavier than the production cars that they're usually based on. But they are a bespoke racing car, and there are some things that you're going to be able to bring over to driving something like an IndyCar. And yeah, preseason test, he was solid if unspectacular. But for the first test
out of 27th, but not terrible.
For a first test in an open wheel car, not too bad.
I'm not going so far, and Canapino himself is keeping his expectations modest. I'm not going to go so far as to say this is the new Scott McLaughlin, because Scott McLaughlins don't grow on trees. But I'd be more charitable to him than to say he's the next Jimmy Johnson either. And we love me some JJ, but IndyCar did not work out well on most road courses. And as it turned out, Callum Ilott doesn't hate being here. In fact, I'd say he's having a bit of fun elevating himself and the team around him. But for my money, if he doesn't break his hand at the 500, you have a better shot at Rookie of the Year honors. And I'm expecting more and more improvement as time goes on. In our eyes, this is always the little upstarts that could. Nobody's going to forget Kyle Kaiser bumping Fernando Alonso out of the 500 in 2019. I know I certainly won't. But since they've come back from the dead, thanks to Brad Hollinger's investment in the team. And remember, this is a guy who was invested in Formula One organizations. He's got big ambitions in this too. This is a team that wants to be more along the lines of a team that started off as underdogs and then grew into a perennial threat for wins and podiums.
Yeah, I mean, can't really disagree with any of that, RJ. I mean, this team is really all about quality rather than quantity, including in their dollars. So they are one of the minnow teams, but they've been able to kind of get blood out of a stone in IndyCar. It really hurt their progress in 2019 when they basically wrote off 2 cars in the space of a week, and it effectively killed the team. But since they've come back from the dead, just little steps forward every weekend, every signing, they get more sponsors. They've now expanded to a second car. Everything seems like it's not a precipitous, jump, but there's always a little bit of forward progress with Juncos.
There's certainly promise here. And they've got a very talented driver to lead that front. If there's more days like Laguna Seca at the end of last season, then they're going to be one to watch next year.
Ilott was high up those timesheets at the Thermal Club.
Yeah, he was. We know Callum Ilott is nothing but quality behind the wheel.
Yeah, a guy that should have really been in Formula One and was unlucky not to have been. But again, another case of it being Formula One's loss, potentially being IndyCar's gain. He's an immense talent. Canapino looks promising as a rookie, which is Always a good sign. He doesn't look like arse, which is already more than my own expectations. So that's good. Holland just making steps in the right direction with Juncos. 2 cars, good performances last year, sporadically, hopefully a bit more frequently in 2023. But baby steps in the right direction.
Just maintain the momentum you had through last year, and no one will consider that a failure of a season.
Agreed.
So if you can get, like we talked about, like you said with Laguna Seca, if you can get 2 or 3 results like that out of your season, you might catch a big sponsor's eye.
Who knows? Yeah, airtime is important. Dale Coyne, who've got big collaborations on both their cars. The number 18, David Malukas, is back with obviously HMD Motorsports. And the number 51 is still the Rick Ware racing car. But there's a new name in the 51. Takuma is gone. More on him in a bit. Stingray Robb is coming over from Indy Lights last year. He graduates into the 51 seat alongside David Malukas in the 18. Now, my first thought going into this year for them was, well, what does year 2 look like for what we now affectionately call Bus Cousin? A team that I think is still in a little bit in rebuild mode at the moment. David Malukas is back for his 2nd season after some real promise as a rookie. That second at Gateway is still one of the drives of 2022, and they'll be hoping he can channel a lot of that raw speed he showed in the second half of the season. I joked all year long in the middle of last year that David Malukas drove after the 500 like Jimmy Johnson literally owed him money, which you could argue he did.
Oh my God.
And yeah, Malukas was very quick at times last year. Joining Malukas, as mentioned, Stingray Robb, the 21-year-old American and 2022 Indy Lights Series runner-up last year.
Early IRL ass name. I love Stingray Robb.
I love the name. It's beautiful. SRR definitely took a step forward, and a lot of eyes will be on him, given he beat series champion Linus Lundqvist to the job due to the latter's shafting on the prize money. No pressure, kid. So, yeah, like, there was talk about this, because this was the seat that Linus was eyeing up, but we all know the story. It's in Indy Lights. I think part of the rebrand might have had something to do with the fact that, half the prize money went missing towards the end of last season. And
it sucks for Linus Lundqvist.
That was horrible for him.
And now they've sorted out their prize money situation again. So that just means that, like, Linus Lundqvist just caught the shit out of the stick. Hopefully he'll be rewarded sometime down the line with a drive that is worth his talents. Stingray Robb is an interesting dude. This is a guy who, when he first came out of the scene, had to correct people and say, no, my name is not Ray Robb. It's Stingray Robb. He's not named after the famous Corvette trim level, but it's shorthand for the town in Scotland where his ancestors lived. He's managed by Alexander Rossi's dad. He grew up in the same town in Idaho as baseball legend Harmon Killebrew, and his Wikipedia page has a section about his Christian faith that paints him as IndyCar's William Byron, but without the glittering CV that Byron had before he jumped straight into the Hendrick 24 car on debut. It took him 4 seasons to win USF Pro 2000, formerly Indy Pro, formerly Pro Mazda. He was almost forgettable his first year of Indy Lights, then turned it up and finished runner-up last year. The one thing I will say is that of the 3 rookies that are running every race this year, he's in the best environment to finish best of all of them.
Agreed.
Okay, yeah.
How do I know this? Look at the other side of the garage.
I mean, even ignoring David Malukas for a minute, what have we always said about Dale Coyne? They are exceptional at developing young race car drivers. They did it with Alex Palou. They nurtured in Romain Grosjean. They had a couple of outstanding results in the 51 car when he was there. They did it with Ed Jones. His rookie season in IndyCar was excellent. He led multiple laps at the 500. He really should have been. Connor Daly was there as well. And Malukas
Daytona 500 alum.
More on that in a minute. But yeah, like, they've developed some very good rookie and younger drivers as a entity since rolling up in IndyCar, and Malukas is no exception. And there's no reason why Stingray Robb can't be another one of those guys, RJ. Oh.
Absolutely. I want to talk about Malukas a bit because I think he took being labeled as the other Indy Lights graduate very personally. And I think he took not being named Indy 500 Rookie of the Year personally. He went out and damn near won a Gateway and was contending for Series Rookie of the Year all the way into the last weekend of the season. Now, unlike Ed Jones, who I would say got rushed up to a big team way too soon, he's not rushing himself up into a big team too soon. Staying here is good for him. If he avoids a second-year slump, he'll be the first race winner that Dale Coyne has had, who is not a bespectacled Frenchman since 2014. And unlike Carlos Huertas in the glamorous parking lot of the Houston Texans Stadium, it always comes back to the Texans for some reason, I don't think it would be an almighty fluke if it happened.
No, I mean, I think I have faith at Malukas because, I mean, he had so many just great performances last year and times where he was just outperforming the team, arguably driving a little bit over the limit. And we saw that manifest a couple of times. But, rookie incidents and all that. My question is just how high is their ceiling? Because we know Dale Coyne's floor is always reasonably high for what they are as one of the smaller teams in the sport. I want to see Malukas win a race this year. And I just don't know if Dale Coyne, without playing some insane offset strategy that they luck into getting to work, I don't know if they're capable of going out and taking a win on pace.
I don't think they're going to win a race on pace. And I think that might be too high a target for them. I mean, yeah, Malukas had that second at Gateway, and if that race was one lap longer, he probably wins. But I also would say, like, that was probably a one-off. And I would say if they can regularly get into the top 10 and get Malukas into the occasional Fast 6, that would be very good progress. He did that a couple of times last year, cracking the Fast 6, but I think he could do that a lot more frequently because his raw speed is immense for Malukas. If he can just channel that into race trim a little bit more, I think there is a very, very fast driver here. The fact that Chip Ganassi was sniffing about Malukas and his contract situation when the Palou incidents came up, there's clearly eyes on Malukas already.
Well, we know that Chip likes winners.
He does like winners. We do know this.
The reason why I have that as a target for them is that we see the flashes. Every year you think one little step more, maybe Dale Coyne snags that win.
I want
to see that last step.
I think Dale Coyne occupies a very, very unique niche within the IndyCar landscape, is that they are an under-resourced team. Have you looked at their headquarters? It's basically a shed on the outskirts of Chicago, and yet they're capable of outperforming the likes of AJ Foty Racing, the weakest links at Andretti Autosport, the weakest links at Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. And that's not really a surprise. They'll probably never, ever be championship contenders, but, they get the most out of what they have.
And that's always admirable. And looking forward to seeing where that goes with Dale Coyne in 2023. And yeah, year 2 of Malukas is going to be very exciting, I reckon. Let's go to the other Acuras. Meyer Shank Racing on that one. It's our friends in pink and black. Helio Castroneves back for another year in the number 06, flip the numbers around, numbers in the 60, that's Simon Pagenaud. My key question going into this was, so what's plan B for this 500 def lineup? Because we all know what the game plan low-key was. We're not silly. You had Helio, he won you a 500 2 years ago. They were like, let's see if we can retain it. It was a good 500, just wasn't a great 500. They finished 7th and 8th last year where that's concerned. Over a full season, there are question marks about this team. I think that's fair to say. Helio struggled on road and street tracks. I mean, it's kind of a natural thing. He is 47. There's no getting around that. And they splashed a lot of cash, and they made a big deal about bringing in Cam's beloved Simon Pagenaud. kind of flamed out a bit last year. I mean, had the one big podium at Indy's road course, not much else.
A season of okay, but nothing special for most of it.
Yes.
It reminded me of his first year at Penske.
Yeah.
Yes.
It would have been real good at the 500 without the engine misfire. I digress. Actually, no, that was the year he got his front wing knocked off. I was thinking the next year.
I mean,
but yeah, I mean, for this team, and especially given the standard that their endurance racing team is now setting, where they are still furious at Ryan Eric King over his pre-Daytona comments and are making it everyone's problem. Yeah, their IndyCar program is, again, okay, but very middle of the road most of the season. I don't really know what to expect out of them.
I'd argue it should be a little bit better with a driver of Simon Pagenaud's quality in it.
I agree with you.
And I agree. And being at the Roulette 24 at Daytona, I don't know how much I got into this when we were actually talking Daytona, but everybody came away very impressed with the way that Simon Pagenaud drove individually in the winning car.
Everyone except Joseph Newgarden, incidentally.
Yes, I know LMDH prototypes are not Indy cars, but this felt like his get-right race because it was a tough end of the season for him.
Even previously, like Pagenaud in prototypes was always, or lately, because he was mega in the late 2000s. But the last few years always been good, but not great in prototypes. This Daytona was the first time I've seen him in a prototype really be that guy since really like 2011.
Yeah.
With the Peugeot program.
I wonder, like, is it time for him to go after another decent young hotshot? Because it's hard not to make the comparison to the previous iteration of this team when it was only one car and they had Jack Harvey. And we were massively impressed with what Jack Harvey did with this team. They have
a lot more than what Jack did at Rahal Letterman Lanigan.
More on that later. But the funny thing is that they have another driver potentially that they could manifest into the seat in the future. Yeah. And that person won them their second Rolex in a row. And that was Tom Blomqvist.
Yeah. You know, son of Stig Blomqvist, namesake of Top Gear's main character. You know, I heard about 10 years ago, he raced in a series called European Formula 3 and finished the year second in the standings, just ahead of some Dutch teenager whose dad was a famous driver or something.
Max something?
Yeah, it might be worth checking out if and when Elio decides to call it a second career. You know, for my money, Elio Castroneves is the greatest driver that has never won a series championship. I know he's not going out in 2023 lifting the Astor Cup, but I think we'd at least all love to see Elio get at least one decent crack at a fifth Indy 500 win.
The thing is, right, RJ, he was still very good at the 500 last year. And I mean, from a pretty poor qualifying effort, they were able to get both cars up into the top 10. Mm-hmm. So as far as the 500 is concerned, Elio is still that guy. And, well, he always was. But if I were to propose something for this team to do, it would probably be to get Elio in a third car for the 500.
Agreed.
And make Blomqvist the main guy in the 06.
Or at least split the 06 where Helio just does the ovals if Tom's not sure about wanting to be the oval guy. Because I know some drivers, a lot of them from European backgrounds in racing, aren't keen on the oval, which is fair enough. It's understandable. Why not split the 06?
Because ask Tom on that one, because if nothing else, to not let Tom Blomqvist get away to another team, because he is unbelievably good.
He's so good.
He made the entire field look silly at Daytona.
Yeah, he's incredible. I watched him during Daytona. He is insane. He was unflappable at the front of the field towards the end of that Rolex. Untouchable. Won them the race at the end when it mattered most. He's insanely fast. He's an incredible talent. Do not let the Formula E run fool you. He was in a shit team there. Do not let anything else distract you from the fact that the man can wheel. I think they could be missing an opportunity by not at least giving Blomqvist the road and street courses in the 06. Because honestly, I don't see what Helio's giving you as a full-time driver. As an oval guy like Ed Carpenter, absolutely. No problem with that whatsoever.
And I mean, we saw, again, last year, he was still putting on some superb moves to cut up through the field. It's just no one was beating Ganassi on the day. And when you start that far down at the 500, you have 500 miles to catch up, but it's also not as easy to pass as it used to be with the previous gen cars.
No, absolutely not. Like I said, I think they're missing a trick with Tom on this one, I think. And they better hope he stays loyal, because we're starting to see a trend in general where more talented, drivers in their mid-20s that they know they're probably going to never end up in F1 are getting IndyCar testing opportunities. We're talking about one of them later on with the Ganassi crew. Nick Cassidy has been offered tests, and we know Cassidy is fast.
Can you imagine if Chip Ganassi steals Tom Blomqvist? God help us all.
Cancel Christmas. It's over. Forget it. Like, holy shit. Like, don't get me wrong. The guy they have brought in is very talented. And, again, could be a high upside guy from Formula 2. We'll get to him in the second half of the show. But, there's opportunities here. And we have walking case studies like Canapino and others, like Christian Lundgaard, which we'll talk about in a minute, that have proven that, yes, the guys coming out of Europe are still more than good enough to wheel it in IndyCar. And the teams are going to go to that well more frequently, especially with the grid now as big as it is.
And the point, as RJ said, the Acura ARX 06 is not an IndyCar, but fast drivers are fast drivers.
Precisely.
And Meyer Shank has a plethora of them waiting in the wings.
Indeed.
Michael Shank, the Shank of Meyer Shank Racing, does not fancy himself as plucking underdogs. He fancies his team as competitive, and I would love to see them take that step forward. I have faith that Simon Pagenaud can take that step forward, just like he did in the second year.
I hope so. I really hope so, because ever since the Aero screen came into play, Simon's just never really been the same in IndyCar. I mean, don't get me wrong. That 2021 Indy 500 final stint. Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
That good shit. But other than that, it's been kind of anonymous for Simon, and we know Simon is better than this because he's the guy who was throwing hands with Joseph Newgarden less than 4 years ago.
Yeah, 100%. Ed Carpenter Racing next up. Our friends and yours, the Bitcoin boys, as I like to call them. In the number 20 car, Rinus VeeKay. I just spun on my chair. In the 21 seat, Connor Daly is back. I'll cut to the chase. It's a retained lineup for them. So VeeKay in the 20, Daly in the 21, and Ed Carpenter in the 33. He's just, as always, doing the ovals, including the 500.
Wait, I thought VeeKay was in the 21.
Did I get him the wrong way around? I might have done.
Yeah. VeeKay's in the 21, Connor Daly's in the 20. But any way you slice it, fascinating team.
My key question going into this was, so you actually got to keep Rinus VeeKay in the end. Now what? Because they were in an interesting place last year in the sense of, when the Alex Palou contract debacle was going down in 2022, the number one name on the board that could potentially have taken the 10 seat, and we were drawing red circles around them on that conspiracy theory chart on the wall, was Rinus VeeKay.
It's all connected.
Exactly. But in the end, when it was all said and done, Rinus chose to stay. He signed a new multiple-year extension at Ed Carpenter Racing, and they actually were able to keep him. So, a good coup for Ed Carpenter to keep Rinus VeeKay, who had a lot of interest from teams like Chip Ganassi and McLaren, very good teams in IndyCar, but they were able to hold on to him. And look, you don't need me to tell you that Rinus VeeKay's upside is immense. We know how fast he can be, and it's worth pointing out, he's a 500 specialist. There is not many of those sorts of drivers in this field. A guy that almost every year he's been at Indianapolis, he has been one of the 5 or so fastest guys in the field and a genuine contender for the win. That in itself is incredibly valuable. But
to that effect, this team are 500 specialists.
They're very good at it. They always have.
The brilliance of Rinus is that he can take that ability and he can take it anywhere.
Yeah. I remember a couple of years ago, he was the only Chevy that made the Fast 9. He is fast, Rinus VeeKay. And Connor Daly, look, say what you will about him, was excellent at the 500 last year, finished in 6th in his hometown race, his best ever finish at Indianapolis. It's a shame that was kind of the highlight of his season. There really wasn't a lot to write home about otherwise. I know it's easy to joke that he is the bad luck Brian of American motorsport, but it is a bit weird that we're now talking about Daly's age 31 season. He's been around for so long, and I think he's driven for 9 different teams now in IndyCar. Like, is this it for Connor Daly? Is this the ceiling on him as a race car driver now? Because his career's kind of at a crossroads here. I mean, what do you reckon, RJ?
I think he'll take the bulk of last year outside the 500. I think he'll take that over whatever the hell his Daytona 500 experience was.
I was going to say, the grid is not big enough in IndyCar, despite it being an all-time big grid, for him to finish worse than he did in the 500 at Daytona. Him with the only car that bounces more than a 2022 Mercedes.
What? I don't understand. This Floyd Mayweather's team was kind of okay. Not like Hendrick or 2311 or Gibbs or anything, but they weren't like terrible their first year. What the hell happened? But that's for our Daytona 500 episode, maybe if we get around to it. Whenever Ed Carpenter decides that he's done being our generation's Gary Bettenhausen, the fastest guy from Indiana who was always quick at the 500 but could never win it despite years and years and years of trying, Connor Daly's got that spot on lock for as long as good health and a dodgy title sponsor avoiding an FTS level collapse will allow. That's not a bad niche to occupy, of course. People connect with this dude. I just worry that he's hit his head on the ceiling hard enough to enter concussion protocol.
Oh, for God's sake.
Oh, no. That would be a very Connor Daly way of missing a race. Just saying. You know, bad luck Brian and all that, you know.
There's just not a lot for me to say about this team.
It's just sort of there.
They're just sort of there, except for the 500, where they are always fast, but can never quite execute the race.
You know who they are? They're this generation's Team Menard, and that's fitting because the roots of this team, I think they go back to Vision Racing, who goes back to Team Menard.
Yeah, and
that's not really, as far as actual success, that's not really a good lineage to have.
Oh, don't worry. They will still build you a fast car at the 500. Will they win it? Who knows? Mind your own business.
Let's put it to you this way. You've got that. They are a 500 specialist team. Rinus VeeKay is an excellent 500 runner, but he's not had a really outstanding 500 yet in his career. And that kind of sums up Rinus VeeKay's career. He has won. He's one of the youngest IndyCar winners of all time. He's still only 22, as RJ points out in our show notes. He's still a baby in IndyCar terms.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you do start to wonder, because I saw, like, maybe it was unfair to give him the Newgarden projection when he was at this team half a decade ago. But you have to wonder, like, you feel like he's better than 12th overall. Is that fair to say?
It's a matter of just stringing it together. It's putting it all together to make a serious run at the championship, or at least finish top 5, top 10 of the points. This team has not had a dude like this since Newgarden graduated to Penske Academy. And even when Newgarden was winning races for this team in 2015 and in 2016, it still felt like he could only go as high as Ed Carpenter / CFH Racing could carry them.
Yeah, there was always a bit of a feeling that it might be the same for Renus, but then the problem with that is Renus just tied himself down to this team for at least another 2 years. So it's like, well, okay, cool, you're still here, but now what?
He's not running out of time. It's strange. Like, he's not running out of time because, again, he's only 22 years old, but, I think people would like to see him at a team with more resources behind them, at some point before it gets too late.
Absolutely. I think that's all fair to say. And good luck to Ed Carpenter, who's bound to give the 500 another go. He'll probably make the Fast 9 and end up finishing like 10th or something. Yeah. Because that's Ed Carpenter for you.
Yeah. And we just wouldn't have it any other way.
We love Uncle Ed. Right.
Space Cadet Ed.
Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. Oh, by the way,
Lord.
That's Space Guardian Ed Carpenter to you. The official title. Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. And this is going to be an interesting team to talk about. Graham Rahal back in the 15 car as ever, but there's been a swap of seats. Jack Harvey is now going to be in the 30 car. That was Christian Lundgaard's car last year, and Lundgaard's now going to be in the 45 car that Harvey was in 2022. We might remember him last year as being the Rookie of the Year in a narrow fight with David Malukas. Now, I put in my notes here, can they bounce back from a horrible expansion? This year was the year that the RLL went to 3 cars, and they were largely mid. At best.
They were largely mid. The weird thing about last year is that Graham Rahal was more consistent than ever, but while his floor got higher, his ceiling got lower. He scored no podiums and no wins when he's usually good for a win or two a season.
Yeah, a win or two, at least 3 or 4 podiums, and nope, didn't get any of them. His best result was 4th last year. But Rahal was, it's weird.
Ow.
Go on, Cam.
Hey, go on. I was going
to say, Rahal was 11th overall last year, and again, we know how good Graham Rahal can be. It wasn't that long ago. He was the best Honda in this championship.
Dre, I'm going to stop you there. Dre, that was 2015.
This is a problem. It's
that's 2015. Years ago.
You know where Honda's Formula One program was in 2015? Look at it now.
good point.
That is not
it's
even
looking to get back into blend with McLaren.
Possibly, yeah.
No. Now it's McLaren, Red Bull.
Yeah, it's a weird time.
What? Yeah. Imagine telling someone McLaren will be supplied engines by Red Bull in 2011.
Yeah, Formula One is fuckery. Anyway, more on them next week. But yes, Rahal is Rahal. Harvey had a horrible 2022. Jack
Harvey was, pound for pound, I would say the worst driver in the series last year.
Yeah, and you know what?
He was... I have to finish this. He was awful wheel to wheel.
Yep.
He was slow. Mm-hmm. He was mistake prone.
Yep.
And the 1 or 2 times he actually was fast, he threw it away.
Yes. And that's all by his own admission. In a feature piece that just went up on the race, featuring Jack Harvey, who said, I don't think that's an oversimplification. I think that's the truth. They were understaffed. They just had a big recruiting drive to bring in a bunch of people to help fortify all 3 of the teams that they had. And they were just having a fundamental issue that they couldn't get their head around. And Lundgaard was just the one driver who could really adapt despite all of it.
He's better than that. He's way better than this.
And we're not just saying that because he's been on our show before.
No, we love Jack Harvey, not just because he's a friend of ours, but also because he's a damn good racing driver, and he's proven in even smaller teams than the one he's in right now that he can wheel an IndyCar at a very high level. Podium level, challenge for wins level. That's how good we know Jack Harvey's ceiling can be. So to see him essentially demoted in terms of promotion to the 30 car, which was the third car they brought in as an expansion in the first place, is alarming.
The expansion was the 45 car.
But remember, the 45 car is also the one that has Hy-Vee Supermarkets as the sponsor.
Big sponsor. Yeah,
the sponsors have been kind of rearranged more than the numbers have for this team, but RLL spent 4 or 5 years as that, are they the next member of the big insert number here? There was a couple years where they really should have had a real shot at the 500.
When it was Rahal and Sato together.
Rahal and Sato, I mean,
Sato actually won one.
Yeah, Sato won one, and Rahal, were it not for a finger trouble in the pit stops, was on the strategy that would have won him a 500.
Oh, yeah.
He was on the right strat. But it just feels like they expanded. They ran before they could walk. They expanded to an additional car. They didn't have the staff to support 3 cars, and everyone suffered because of it.
Yeah.
You know what to that I say is that at the height of Graham Rahal being a title challenger, he begged for more help around him, even if it upstaged him. And now he's got 2 cars in the garage. And now they've just had to do a massive recruitment drive to bring in people like Steve Erickson and Stefano Sordo as a race engineer to help make sure that it all runs well.
Say Steve Erickson's a fantastic pickup. Used to run Honda Performance Development.
Yeah, big name to have there in the back. So this team knows they stank last year. They know they probably weren't ready for the expansion in the end, and they were stretched, and they know they're stretched, so they had the recruiting drive. So at least they know what the problems are. That's already half the battle. We know that they are a top 6-7 sort of team when it comes to cars at their best, because that's what they were roughly doing when it was Rahal and Sato a couple of years back. That's their upside at the moment. I don't see any reason why they couldn't get back there. And talking about Christian Lundgaard for a minute, I completely agree with what RJ says in his notes. If he gets the ovals down, he's going to be a top 10 driver in the series this coming season. Man on road and street courses is outstanding for a rookie.
If IndyCar had a more stringent disciplinary policy when it comes to cars falling foul of all of their technical checks, Christian Lundgaard is a race winner. And I don't even think he's going to need that sort of help this year because, my God, he's talented. Remember, this was once the guy that was the top-tier Alpine Academy can't-miss F1 prospect in Formula 2, and then he got all the bad batches of Mechachrome engines. Just like another guy we'll talk about soon.
Yeah, I mean, the team knows, they know what they need to fix. Question is, can they fix it? As a side note, Catherine Legg is back for the 500.
That's fucking right. Catherine Legg is back for the Indianapolis 500, her first attempt at it in 10 years.
Yes, we love to see it.
Finally, a victim of the Lotus IndyCar program. Absolutely deserved better. Go kick some ass in the 500, Catherine.
The streets never forget that Catherine Legg in the Atlantic Championship was winning races, which was something that Danica Patrick didn't even do in the same series.
We'll always have her performance in that Delta Wing at the Rolex. Catherine Legg can wheel. She's a genuinely fantastic driver and fantastic to get more female representation back in the series. And, as Jason points out in the chat, she's in car number 44. What could possibly go wrong?
Hashtag blessed.
Blessed indeed. Lewis, bless that car. Like, you're a diversity guy. We got a woman in your car number. Go for it. Bless Catherine Legg for us, please. We'd love to see it.
He's got to bless his own car this year at this point.
Subject of Formula One, let's talk about Andretti Autosport. And the key question, and your key question was, what the fuck? And mine is, you got knocked on your ass last year. What you gonna do about it?
There's no sugarcoating Andretti Autosport.
They're in a bad place.
They were horrible last year.
Yeah, their standards especially, it wasn't good.
Yeah,
there were flashes of good shit, but...
There were flashes of good shit because the raw driving talent behind the wheel, car number 29 aside, I will take the place of Ryan Eric King on this podcast. The driving talent, when they weren't hitting each other, is not the problem.
Immense.
The problem was everything else. Reliability, consistency, crashes. All four drivers hitting each other at one point. Intra-team turmoil. Michael Andretti looking like he was about to sock Alexander Rossi right in the nose.
And his dad.
And his dad. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And the cherry on top was Colton Herta having the terrible, no good, and very bad Indy 500 last season.
Yeah.
And it cost him a Formula One super license.
Yeah. It's a weird time to be Andretti right now. We all know what their aspirations are. They want a Formula One team. They are twerking hard at Formula One management. Please, Daddy, let us into F1. And, well, it doesn't help that their house at home is currently on fire. They have one guy who was in the top 10 of the championship last year. They have one guy who was an IndyCar race winner, and that's Colton Herta. We all know how good Colton Herta is. He's a phenomenal talent. He's also still, I think, a bit raw and still a little bit rough around the edges as a driver, but his upside is as good as anyone's in this series. As far as I'm concerned, there has been occasions where he has looked like the fastest dude in the sport, bar none. We all know what he's capable of. It's just Andretti has let him down, and Herta would be the first person to admit that. And yeah, the rest of the team is there's question marks here. Romain Grosjean.
I think they are an incredibly interesting team because
yes,
the 27 car. Kyle Kirkwood is free. The shackles of AJ Foty Enterprises.
He's got the fucking parachute, baby. And he's putting it to good use because he was fastest at the first day of the Thermal Club test.
First day in a car worth a damn, fastest overall. We know Kyle Kirkwood. We know what he's capable of. Really, and compared to previous years, Andretti isn't that big of an upgrade going into this season.
Right.
In the 28 car, you have Romain Grosjean. Centerpiece of basically all controversy in IndyCar last year, even though for all of the talk about his aggression, that kind of aggression is just commonplace these days in IndyCar.
Yeah.
And Devlin G. Francesco. Moving on.
At least the checks are still clearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
for now.
Raw driving talent. They are as good as anyone in this field.
Absolutely.
They've got the best, arguably the best relationship with Honda out of anyone in this field. And it just, you've been able to see the last couple of years, every year it just gets a little worse and a little worse. And last year was like the bottom fell out.
Yeah, 100%. Like, this is a team that I think could be really good next year. It could also be dreadful. I don't know what's going to happen. Herta can win a title. He can also finish in 10th. Grosjean can win races in this series. He's, especially on road and street courses, he's exceptional. Ovals, jury's still out on him, in my humble opinion. He did ruin his season by having a dreadful 500 by binning it there, which did not help himself. Kirkwood, we all know the upside, exceptional talent. How he's going to fit in this mold remains to be seen. We have to wait and see. I'm optimistic about Kirkwood, but that's Alex Rossi's seat. Alex Rossi has challenged for a championship and won a 500 in this team.
But Alex, no matter how, as you put it, losing Alex Rossi from a talent, it's always a downgrade.
He's exceptional, Alex. We know how good he can be.
But you have to think that Alex Rossi and Andretti were really just about done with each other. Clearly. Even going into last season. I mean, you couldn't get a more toxic teammate dynamic than what Rossi had with everyone else in Andretti. He clashed with Colton. He clashed with Romain Grosjean to the point where he was deliberately trying to take Romain out of a race.
Yeah, they were not even on speaking terms by the end of their time together.
Yeah. That kind of vitriol in your team is not sustainable.
No.
But you also lost Alex Rossi, who can wheel.
Top 10 driver in the field, can win championships, can win almost any given race on paper.
He can win championships when he gets out of his own way.
Yes.
That is my question for Andretti. can you get out of your own way this year and give Colton Herta not just a shot at the 500, because we know he's fast around Indianapolis. I mean, that pole duel between him and Scott Dixon 2 years ago, was incredible to watch. You need to give Colton something where he is not driving at 11 tenths to get speed out of it.
Right.
Because Colton Herta can live at 11 tenths until he can't.
Yeah. It's not an ideal place to be. And amazingly, Herta still hasn't won an oval race yet. Worth pointing out. Just thought I'd throw that one out there.
That is weird.
I think it's gonna... I was very bullish on Colton Herta last year, and it did not work out. But I still believe that this dude can go out there and win any given weekend. Look at the save that he made in the Grand Prix at Indy last year.
One of the best saves I've ever seen.
But the problem is, RJ, is that he's having to basically be the Monka steer gif all the time to get pace out of these cars. Andretti needs to give him the equipment to not have to live over the edge.
Agreed.
Like how we talk about Marc Marquez having to just subjugate an uncooperative bike into working.
Yeah, just going over the limit
soon. Yeah, having to live over the limit. Andretti needs to supply these guys equipment on the level of Ganassi, on the level of Penske, because we know what their drivers are capable of.
Yeah, absolutely. Quick note about the 2023 calendar. It's basically exactly the same as last year.
Continuity.
A quick rundown. They start next weekend, March 5th at St. Pete, and then they take a month off immediately. Fantastic. We love that about this series. Fuck's sake. April 2nd, Texas, for one of 4 ovals on the year. The Texas Indy 375. If anything like last year, that should be fun. Long Beach, as usual, top of the slot in the middle of April 16th. Then we go to RJ's backyard. Barber.
My old backyard.
It's our backyard, I should say. April 30th for the Alabama Indy Grand Prix at Barber. Then we have the month of May, of course, the road course race on May 13th. The 107th running of the Indy 500 will be on May 28th this year. And traditionally, we're going back to Detroit a week after, but it'll be the brand new Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix at their new street circuit. That'll be on June 4th. Then we have Road America, my favorites. I do love the Road America race, June 18th on that one. Then we got a bit of a summer break. We got a couple of weeks off there, and then we're going to Mid-Ohio for the Honda Indy 200 there. 2 weeks later, Toronto on July 16th. And then 2 races again at Iowa, the Hy-Vee IndyCar 250 and 300. The second race being 300 miles long, a little bit longer. Apparently Ed Sheeran performing down there next year, so that'll be fun for your into your music.
There's no sack.
Oh dear. Then Nashville is back for another clunky game of Tetris on August 6th. 6 days later, we've got a second Indy road course race. I think that's going to be the NASCAR double as well on August 12th.
That is the Brickyard double.
So that'll be on the Saturday, August 12th, just worth bearing in mind for that one. August 27th, we've got the Gateway 500 there, but Bonmarito Automotive 500 there at Gateway. So I guess technically it's 5 oval races rather than it's 4 oval weekends.
5 oval races on 4 different ovals.
Yep. Portland is back in the penultimate slot on September 3rd because it's a triple header to close out the year. And then the final round of the year, the Grand Prix of Monterey at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, the season finale on September the 10th. It's basically the exact same calendar as last year, a couple of different locations. But besides that, pretty much the same as last year. 17 rounds in total, 5 oval races, and then 12 road and street, 2 visits to Indianapolis's road course as well. So they seem to have kept that summer Indy road course slot after the pandemic and made them go there 4 times in a year, which I thought was quite funny. Should we get into the big hitters, gentlemen?
That's right. Let's get in the big 3, and we're going to start with Era McLaren, no longer Era McLaren SP. Pato O'Ward returns to lead the team. Felix Rosenqvist is back somehow after being the other guy involved in the big contractual dispute from last year. And as mentioned, they've added Alexander Rossi, a perfectly balanced 7th, 8th, and 9th in the standings last year, all in one roof.
Yeah, they've expanded to 3 cars. Felix is now in the number 6 car. Alex Rossi is in the 7 car. And, well, for McLaren, it's a familiar story. We've kind of been saying this for the last 3 years about them. Pato O'Ward is an incredible talent. I say this as someone where Colton Herta was getting F1 hype last year and genuine opportunity to potentially be in an F1 car. And I'm sitting there going, Pato O'Ward's right there, Zach. Pato O'Ward is right fucking there as one of the best all-round drivers in this series, a guy who can win anything. Demon over an ovals, I forgot to add as well. He's a fantastic oval racer.
He is such a well-rounded driver and likable. He is everything that this team
adorable.
needs.
I love this man. I mean, he is my favorite driver in IndyCar now James Hinchcliffe is gone. I love Palou, and I've never rooted for a McLaren guy before in my life, but here we are.
He just likes drivers with number 5, doesn't he?
I do like the number 5. It's a good number. If I do say
we'll just skip over the NASCAR thing. We'll skip over the NASCAR thing. We'll talk about Felix. We'll talk about Felix Rosenqvist because well, he's back.
Felix was a dead man walking until the 500 last year, and we all I blame Jenna Fryer for this because she was the first one that put it out there that Palou might be going to McLaren, and we all thought she was talking gobbledygook until she turns out she was actually on the money, just not in the way that we knew it. And honestly, the problem is it still kind of looks like that now because everyone and their mother now is openly acknowledging, yeah, Palou's probably going there next year.
I would cut probably from that sentence.
Yeah, Palou is almost certainly going to be in the 6 car next year in where Felix is. And Felix, I feel so bad for the man. The man drove so well in the second half of last season to essentially save his IndyCar career. It was like, no, don't put me in a Formula E seat, please. And he was able to do it. He got 4th in the 500. He was able to carry on those results all through last year, was right behind Pato by the end of the year. Did enough to keep his job, kept his seat after the Palou dispute was settled. But he still feels like a dead man walking because they've made this effort to go to 3 cars. They have been teasing it for a couple of years. They've got the 3rd car. They've got a superb driver for Alex Rossi. If that's your 3rd guy,
your floor is Alexander Rossi.
Holy shit! Alex Rossi is an incredible driver. We all know how good he can be, and that's your 3rd guy. That's your safety net.
Just added Gavin Ward to your race director position to replace Taylor Kyle after you threw Taylor Kyle under the bus.
He was too busy. Taylor Kyle got thrown under the bus, and he's gone home to be a girl dad. We love girl dads here, but unfortunately,
his home is in Chip Ganassi Racing's headquarters.
Apparently so. It was a short bus ride over, but I mean.
And keep in mind as well, the only Chevrolet team worth a damn at the 500 last year. The only team giving Ganassi anything to think about in the final stages.
I don't get what they say. Pato should have won the 500 last year.
If Pato didn't make a business decision at turn 1, he probably steals that 500 from right under Chip's nose.
Yeah. We just talked about Ed Carpenter Racing having the quickest Chevrolet powered cars at the 500. McLaren is the best Chevrolet power team at the 500 until proven otherwise. Is Aero McLaren, and they just added an Indianapolis 500 winner.
Yes.
Yeah.
The guy who is in the right equipment at the 500, an absolute wrecking machine.
Demon. There is no more guy who flirts on that line of aggression at the 500 better than Alex Rossi. We all know what he's capable of, but for that very reason, I also am saying here, there's no excuses anymore. You've got 3 cars. You've got all the resources under the sun with your new factory. You've expanded. We all know how big your F1 unit is. We all know you've made big moves. You've tied Pato down for another 3 years. You've brought in Alex Rossi. You've got Gavin Ward under your own roof now.
You have all the ingredients. Make the dish.
There's no excuses. You've got arguably one of the best drivers in this series. Pato O'Ward is...
No. You have two of the best drivers in the series and one person who's like maybe a quarter step behind. Yeah. And in the second half of last year drove to save his job.
Yeah. You've got a race winner in Felix Rosenqvist. Point blank. That really might be your flaw. And if that's your flaw, Felix answered the critics as to what the problem with Arrow McLaren was in 2021. And it was a one-car outfit. Felix was right there at the end of the season. You've got no excuses now. We are now no longer evaluating Arrow McLaren in the context of plucky contender. We are now evaluating McLaren in the context of you should be challenging for a championship.
This is what they this is what they wanted to be since McLaren bought in this team.
This is it.
Yeah.
You have three drivers who can win on any given weekend.
Correct.
On almost any given track. I mean, Alex Rossi is good everywhere when he's in the right headspace. Pato O'Ward is good everywhere. Again, maybe a little harsh on his tires, but that definitely got better last year compared to the previous year. He makes that next step again. Ooh, they're looking good.
Oh yeah, we forgot to mention Tony Kanaan Sayonara Tour, and he might have a chance to win the 500.
Tony Kanaan will retire after this year's Indy 500. And
one last ride.
He will go out with McLaren Arrow McLaren.
He will go out with McLaren, his final race in IndyCar as a family.
Okay, Dom.
This is the retirement tour that he wanted in 2020 until COVID happened. He wasn't going to retire in front of no people in the grandstands.
Yep.
But there's a problem I'm looking at here. You have, from people who were there last year, Pato O'Ward and Felix Rosenqvist did not even remotely challenge for the title.
No.
And that was with having an exceptional, the best 500s outside of course, Marcus Ericsson.
Yeah.
Kind of says a lot about the rest of their season, don't it?
Pato O'Ward had 4 DNFs last season that were not his fault. That's 200 points off the table before you even started.
They need to cross their T's and dot their I's, because the ceiling is immeasurable. Mm-hmm. But if you keep having the little reliability issues and occasional mistakes from pit crew and occasionally driver, you're never going to get to that ceiling.
At that level, they will be exposed for those errors. It's as simple as that.
If you leave an opening, Ganassi and Penske will eat you alive, and that is just how IndyCar has worked forever.
Correct. Chip Ganassi Racing. This is an interesting setup. Numbers 8 to 11 across their 4 cars this season. They are running 4 cars again. Marcus Ericsson is back. Last year's Indy 500 winner. We all know
Mr. Consistency.
Scott Dixon in the number 9 car. Do I need further explanation? Number 10, 2021 season champion Alex Palou back for what's almost certainly his final season at Chip Ganassi Racing. And in the number 11 car, no more Jimmy. He's gone back to NASCAR part-time. We've got a split package between Marcus Armstrong, the former Formula 2 driver, who'll be taking on the road and street courses and returning to the Indy 500 and all the ovals over the course of the season. Not now, Sato!
We just gave Takuma Sato a Ganassi car for the Indy 500. God help us all.
What the fuck were the rest of you lot thinking? What the hell is wrong with you people? How on earth did any of you how did you all let this happen? I'm looking at every single person in the room. If I had all of IndyCar's bosses in the room besides Chip, I'd be saying, guys, the fuck? It's Takuma Sato. It's one of the best 500 runners of all time. One of the best oval racers of all time. Period.
He's won 2 Indy 500s, and he had to rip them out of the hands of Helio Castroneves and Scott Dixon, respectively.
Takuma Sato is that dude. What dude? That dude. Again,
Chip Ganassi are still those dudes. They're Plan C won the 500.
Correct. Let's not forget, Dixon was 1 mile an hour away last season from probably doubling up the 500 and the Astor Cup. It was that mistake that cost Dixon arguably everything, and Palou lost the lap due to an unlucky yellow, and he was the second fastest guy at Indianapolis all in the month of May.
He was shadowing Dixon. I mean, Scott Dixon had what it was by his standards a pretty crap year.
Yeah.
He finished third in the championship.
Average finish of 8. Oh no, third overall. Dreadful year.
Terrible. He's washed. It doesn't happen anymore.
Oh, are we forgetting that at the 500, Palou had one of the greatest qualifying runs in Indy 500 history for about 10 minutes?
Yeah, and then Dixon said, bet.
When Alex Palou, who's one of the nicest dudes in IndyCar, can only turn his head and laugh, you know how special Chip Ganassi was at the 500 last year. They had a fleet. It was literally a fleet. They had 5 contenders for that championship title of the 500, and Plan C won the damn race. We all thought that Dixon and Palou had blown it. Marcus Ericsson was like, "I got you, Chief. don't worry about it."
with the outlap of the gods.
Yeah, drove around the McLarens like they had 4 flat tires.
Unbelievable.
I remember just texting my coworker who she's also into the 500, and she's just like, "Damn it!" Watching Dixon's speed, but yeah. And they also did what they did in the championship despite absolute turmoil in the team, because Alex Palou and Chip were at war with each other all season.
Yeah,
they were at court with one another, and then they weren't.
Yeah, they were on the brink of going to federal court. It was a huge distraction that was the transcendent story, not just in IndyCar, but in all of motorsport in 2022.
This had ramifications on Formula One.
Yeah.
We now have 2-factor verification for every driver announcement since.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. God, and the fallout is still rolling because, as we mentioned in the previous segment, Alex Palou's probably leaving. Now, why you would leave Chip Ganassi racing for McLaren, man, I can't understand the thinking behind that. However, Alex Palou was in a team that was at war with him, and he finished 5th in the standings. Again, had an atrocious 500 through no fault of his own.
He dropped the whole vending machine and crushed everybody underneath of it at Laguna Seca while all this shit was going down.
A race he won by 30 seconds.
I think on raw ability, Alex Palou is as good as anyone on planet Earth.
He's insane.
In any series.
He's incredible. He's an incredible fucking racing driver. I've called him on this show the Magician multiple times because out of fucking nowhere, he'll just be, "Oh, I'm second now. Hi guys, what's up?" I'm just like, how does Palou keep doing this?
It's pretty much Scott Dixon too. That's been Scott for years.
I was going to say, he stole Scott Dixon's fuel-saving tricks last year for a couple of races.
I've said it numerous times. Like, he is Dixon 2.0. Do you know how terrifying a prospect that is for IndyCar for the next 15 years? Like, that is a terrifying thought that, like, Palou would have won 3 or 4 rounds last year if it wasn't for Scott McLaughlin. More on him later, because he was the one guy in front of him on 3 occasions. And like
those two went to fucking war a couple times.
Oh, they did. Again, 2 incredible talents. And like I said, Plan C, Marcus Ericsson, that's your floor. Marcus Ericsson was 6th overall and was in title contention, led the championship for 3/4 of the season, just ran out of steam at the end. But Marcus Ericsson is a damn good driver in this series. I don't care what you tell me.
Yeah, when they announced the Sato signing, people were just like, "Oh man, that's it. Marcus Ericsson's never going to have another sniff of success." Like, dude, Marcus Ericsson just went quickest in the second day of the thermal test.
I'd say Marcus is just as much as we would poke fun at him in the past. He every year is just a little better.
Yeah,
and eventually you keep getting a little better. Eventually you're the best.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you don't win an Indy 500 by mistake.
Indeed.
That's just a fact of life in IndyCar. And while others made mistakes or ran into bad luck, sometimes the sometimes one of these legendary races picks you.
Mm-hmm.
His teammate, who beat the field black and blue all day, cost himself the win.
That's how it goes.
Ericsson still had to go take it from the two McLarens.
He did. And Marcus was top 10 in every single practice session at the month of May. It was no fluke. And anyone who says it was a fluke is doing Marcus a disservice, probably due to F1-related stigma. That's your flaw. I'm very curious to see how Marcus Armstrong gets along on the road and street courses in the 11 car as well. Like
noted host of the Screaming Meals podcast, Marcus Armstrong. Who let a podcaster drive an IndyCar anyway?
It's a terrible idea. I don't recommend it. Look, I don't even really care because given that how good 8, 9, and 10 are in their respective seats, Armstrong's playing with house money. As far as I'm concerned, if he's up there as well, fucking cancel Christmas.
Like, well, that's the thing about Ganassi, isn't it? Is that every car is good now. There was a long time for Ganassi where you would have Dixon just driving out of his mind, and the rest of Ganassi was fairly anonymous.
Yeah, there was a time, especially in the early 2010s, where what we love us, and Charlie Kimball's a nice dude, but it was clear that he was very much a B-team Ganassi driver. Same with Matt Chilton when he was there. Same when Graham Rahal was there before he reunited with his old team.
There were times Dario Franchitti used to make Scott Dixon look anonymous.
Remember
God damn it. That dude.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, that is the thing that Ganassi has done with their expansion, is that every car is good. Every car is Tony Kanaan were at a one-off for the 500 last year and was fighting for the win at the end.
He was third at the end. He finished third.
47-year-old Tony Kanaan was third last year and had a genuine shot at the win. Like, that was plan E. It's like he was the break glass in case of emergency option, and he was third. Chip Ganassi is nuts. Let's meet their competition. Team Penske. Oh boy. First, second, and fourth in the standings last year. We all know the drill. Will Power, reigning series champion. In the 12 car. I'd like to remind you his average finish was 5 last year. I just want to point that out one more time. Absolutely fucking bulletproof consistency pretty much all year long, despite only having one win. Joseph Newgarden, who must be really sick and tired of finishing second, runner-up 3 years in a row in this series now, and having won 5 races last season. And some guy called Scott McLaughlin, who won multiple times on road and street courses. Oh, by the way, I wanted to point out, no one scored more points on road and street courses last season than Scott McLaughlin, who was 4th in the championship.
If he nails down ovals, and he's not even bad at ovals, he's just not as good as his competition. Cancel Christmas, cancel Hanukkah, cancel the whole damn season.
Dude, but it's wild.
But here's the problem. Yes, you pour in blood, sweat, and tears, and then you lose to Penske. Unless it's the Indy 500, where they've been pants for years.
They've not had a good consistently good 500 from practice to time trials to the race since 2019.
Yeah, Pagano's that was Pagano's win, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that was Pagano win.
For the entire month of May was just beating the field black and blue.
Yeah,
Power and Pagano won consecutive years in 2018 and 2019, and they've been fine but not great since. And I'm going
to disagree on that. In 2020, they were unwatchably poor. Now, a lot of that was on Chevy. 21, the only driver competitive was Pagano. 22, well,
nowhere.
Not as bad as 2020, but just didn't really feature at all.
Nope.
This is the track they own.
Mm-hmm. But the funny thing about it is that it might not actually hurt them as much if they are bad at the 500 this year, because in one of the major structural changes, there is no longer double points at the 500. It is going to be scored like any other IndyCar race going forward. Hey, remember the time not that long ago when this round was basically triple points because they scored qualifying like a full race? Like, there was like over 160 points on the 500 alone a few years ago. They've gone from essentially triple points to double points and a thinned down top 9 for qualifying, now to single points with, again, 9 points as a bonus for pole.
Dre, so how do you personally feel about that?
It's a weird one because for me, I am generally the sort of person that says if you're going to double point certain rounds, go all the way with it. And IndyCar has scaled back on that in the time I've been a fan, because I started becoming a fan of IndyCar when there was double points on the finale as well, and that was often at Infineon Raceway. Now, good old Sonoma. They got rid of that a few years ago. As I said before, the 500 used to be qualifying was treated like a race in terms of scoring, and then the 500 was double points. And for a series that makes absolutely no bones about the 500 being the real grand prize, like, I actually was kind of okay with them having it as double points. I think it's crafty as fuck from Roger Penske that they've gone...
It's something that we've been asking for years. However, kind of funny how that works.
Yeah, it's funny that now that Roger Penske owns the series and owns the speedway, that now they've gone to single points on the 500. It's like they've gone Family Feud in reverse. And now it's only single points for the 500, which would actually mitigate their season from being a total disaster if they have a bad 500.
Which would be so funny if they had a great 500, but then the missed opportunity on double points cost any one of their drivers the championship. I'm going to be sick. That means Joseph Newgarden's finishing runner-up again.
Oh boy. Like, I don't even need to go into much detail about their quality of driver. It's fucking Penske. Will Power is a juggernaut, can win on anything, anywhere.
The new improved
anytime.
Will Power.
The Zen Master.
The Zen Master Will Power.
The new Grand Pole winner.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just punishing consistency across last year. There was, no matter how bad his day got, he would find a way to just bring it back.
Exactly.
Mid-Ohio.
Indeed.
Mid-Ohio.
He'll find a way. He always does. And this is a guy who's now so zen with himself. He was talking about how to get better for 2023 during his own wedding night. It's crazy. Like, Will Power is now so zen. Apparently at the test the other day, he actually forgot he was series champion. Genuinely, he actually forgot that he won the title. He's just that laid back about it now. Like, Zen Master Power is a scary thought. Joseph Newgarden, despite multiple crew chiefs and engineers, team reshuffles.
And he's going to have another one this year.
Still that dude. Like, Joseph Newgarden, you can make a very strong case, is the best driver in this entire series.
Joseph Newgarden is going to have another new race engineer this season. Luke Mason, former Carlin guy, coming over to follow Gavin Ward.
Isn't that his third one in 3 years?
That's right. It's his third one in 3 years.
And it just hasn't mattered because Joseph's just that fucking good. It's just like, it just doesn't matter. Like, Joseph is just insanely good. As mentioned, won 5 races last year, won an extra $500,000 for winning the IndyCar Triple Crown last year, of winning on all 3 major disciplines. The only man in the field to do that last season. He's Joseph Newgarden. He can win anywhere. It doesn't matter, like, at this point. Like, if Newgarden has the upside and has, working rear suspension throughout the season.
I say he is a right rear suspension failure away from a championship last year.
Yeah. He must be really sick and tired of finishing runner-up at Penske.
And you know what else he's sick and tired of? He's getting sick and tired of burgeoning into old man without a Borg Warner Trophy territory.
Oh, yeah.
But the problem is, RJ, he hasn't even looked like winning one so far.
Yeah. And
especially not with Penske's struggles at the 500.
Which is amazing, because everywhere else he might be the best oval runner in the field now.
Yeah, but there's no oval like Indy.
Exactly. It's ridiculous.
I mean, the one we used to have was Pocono, and even there, like, he was good, but he would usually get outperformed by Pagenaud and Power.
What about this
others.
one on the outskirts of Los Angeles near a steel mill? Something called Auto Club Speedway. Wait a minute, they're doing what?
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. If I talk about it, I'll lose my mind.
Scott McLaughlin, decent driver.
The project work.
The project is practically done at this point. I mean, Scott McLaughlin was, again, like an especially poor 500 away from being a closer championship challenger.
It wasn't so much the 500, it was Detroit that did him in. Where he hit the wall and then that put him out of the race, and that's I think what really did McLaughlin in last season. Just that dreadful month of May across the board, which it was like McLaughlin was right there. As I said, he won multiple races last season. Nobody did better on road and street tracks than McLaughlin did last year. Like
he crashed out of the 500.
Yeah, didn't help either. Remind me, RJ. Didn't Roger Penske say that McLaughlin reminded him of someone when he first got there? Like, I want to say it was Rick Mears.
Yeah, that's a pretty big comparison. We compared to a 4-time Indianapolis 500 winner.
McLaughlin is that dude. McLaughlin is terrifyingly fast, and remember, he's only done 2 full seasons.
He's only going to get better, and yeah, like again, he finished. Just looking here. Out of 33 cars, he finished 29th at the 500. He finished behind Jimmy Johnson, who also didn't finish.
Yeah. The 500 was he basically scored 0 points through May, and he was still a contender until the final round.
Yeah, because Power, who ended up winning the championship, was 15th. Got 32 points out of it.
That's basically a third place.
Yeah.
Under normal scoring.
Scott, if you are being compared to Rick Mears, and for those of you who might be unfamiliar with Rick Mears, go look up his finishing record because he is beyond extraordinary.
One of the greatest racing drivers of all time.
He's one of the greatest racing drivers after a debilitating foot injury.
Yeah, his potential was higher, and he still fulfilled it.
Yes.
Scott McLaughlin is him, especially on road and street courses. If he can put together just a mid 500, ooh,
he'll be right up there.
He might just sneak one over the born and raised in IndyCar drivers there.
Yeah, he's on that level now. It's obvious he's on that level now. Penske will always have 3 bullets in the chamber, but can they get the 500 down? And even if they don't, it might not matter so much now, which is funny how that works out.
I was going to say, all of their drivers had an objectively mid to awful 500. Power won the championship, Newgarden finished 2nd, and McLaughlin finished 4th.
Right. Okie dokie. So let's get into the killer questions before we get out of here. First up from RJ Okada, who wins the Indy Next Championship? It's a loaded field. It's the biggest field.
It's one of the best fields we've had, I want to say, since 2016. There's a lot of names. We could go up and down this list. Obviously, Jamie Chadwick's the one that's getting all the attention. Kiffin Simpson being a Ganassi development driver. I want to look at a young man, Nolan Siegel, in the number 39 car, the HMD Motorsports with Dale Coyne racing car. He was 4th in Indy Pro 2000 last year, but that doesn't tell the whole story. He was a title contender for pretty much 3/4 of the season. I've watched this dude just drive the shit out of an LMP3 car at Daytona and then damn near win 3 races of the Asian Le Mans Series in the LMP2 class. He's 18 years old. He's making his debut. That is my dude that I'm picking for the Indy Nets title, and that's Nolan Siegel.
I'm split between 2, and I think they're both going to be out of the Andretti camp, and it's not Chadwick. I do find it funny that Sky Sports all of a sudden got the rights for Indy Next for this upcoming season. Funny that. Must have been part of the package deal. But I think Hunter McElroy is going to be one to watch. Everybody else around him in Indy Lights last year got promoted or unfortunately missed out on a job. Poor Linus. So he's kind of walking into this situation as favorite. I also want to give a shout out to Louis Foster, who won in the Pro 2000 category last year and dominated that championship. I think Foster could go back to back. I think he's certainly going to be one to watch out for king and country. As far as I would say Louis Foster is certainly one to watch next year.
I'm going to go McElroy.
Absolutely a valid pick. McLaren was really good last year. He was already getting talked about potentially going to IndyCar full-time last year.
Roland Siegel embarrassed Neil Yanni, a former Le Mans winner and World Endurance Champion in Equal Machinery. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you that he's got a little bit of it in him.
Oh, yeah. Who will be Rookie of the Year?
Oh.
So you're talking Stingray Robb, Benjamin Pedersen, Canapino, or Marcus Armstrong?
Can Marcus Armstrong beat all of these dudes while missing 5 races? Romain Grosjean almost pulled it off.
Stingray Robb for me.
I'm gonna go out there on a far out there limb, and I'm gonna say Canapino by a little bit.
Okay.
I'm actually going to go with Canapino as well. I would go Armstrong all day, every day, but I think he's going to miss too many races.
5's too many, man. I can't see how he gets there. He'd have to be insanely good, like Lundgaard good out of the box. And I'm not sure he's got that in him, but we'll have to wait and see.
But I will say he is better than his F2 track record being stuck down the Ferrari Driver Academy depth chart will indicate.
Agreed. Most improved driver.
I am going to go... This is interesting. I'm going to go Kyle Kirkwood because it has to be better than last year, and he's in better equipment, and we can see he's got speed in this equipment.
What do you reckon, RJ?
Callum Ilott is going to win his first race at some point this season.
Whoa! Oh, boy. Wouldn't go that high on the list. I'm going to say David Malukas. I think Malukas gets on the podium. I'm not going to say he's going to win, but I think at least 2 podium finishes from David Malukas in 2023. So I'd say David Malukas. He was 16th overall last year. I think he can get in the top 12.
We are fading both the Frenchmen here in this debate, although they really should be candidates for most improved driver of the year.
Agreed. Which 500 ringer puts on the best performance? So of all the part-time 500 runners, we're looking at Takuma Sato, Ed Carpenter, Tony Kanaan, Catherine Legg, Marco Andretti, who we forgot is going to be back for the 500 this year with Andretti, and Stefan Wilson as well.
Takuma Sato might win the whole damn thing.
It's very possible.
This will be arguably the best equipment Sato has ever had at the 500. It's going to be his best equipment since the 2017 win with Andretti, where Andretti were dominant at the 500 all month.
Are we all picking Takuma Sato?
TK.
Ooh.
One last ride
as a family.
If Tony Kanaan could go out as Indy 500 champion,
oh god, no!
What an end to a truly incredible career.
I think it's something like 360 starts if you combine his Champ Car runs with his IndyCar Series runs. He's the true Iron Man of this series, and
I mean one of the names that helped propel this sport through a really, really poor time. Yes. A time where the continued health of American open wheel racing was up for debate every year. He was one of the stars at the front of the field pretty much every race.
It will be his 390th start.
Wow.
If you combine his IndyCar runs and his Champ Car runs, it'll be 390. It'll be his 390th start, which is more than anyone has ever had in F1. Just to put into perspective as to what a mainstay of North American motorsport Tony Kanaan has been over the last 2.5 decades. This is, I think, the 26th season that Tony Khan has taken part in. Almost said Tony Khan there, like I'm watching AEW. Not ideal. But I think TK under the McLaren banner, McLaren have got a good setup for the 500. I think it's going to be TK. I've got a feeling TK is going to go down honorably with a top 5 finish. I really do, and I think we'll all be very emotional and upset because who doesn't love Tony Kanaan in IndyCar?
Well, as you see, there is a problem with our prediction, RJ.
What's that?
Takuma Sato is either gonna run really damn well at the 500,
or Bennett,
or somebody else is gonna bid it for him. What's up, Davison? 500 pole position winner.
500 pole position.
Dixon.
I don't want to put it on Ditson because you know what that means for the 500 later.
We've been here before.
We're
here every year.
Put me down for a cheeky Colton Herta to win pole position in one of these things.
Oh my God.
Bold.
Down bad for anything at the 500.
And then who wins the race?
Dare I say it?
Go on.
Say Alex Palou. He's been too good every year at this race.
Fucking good at everything. Who cares?
He's good at everything. Oh my God. I think Alex Palou.
Sure.
Because we're at alternate universes and all that. Everything at the 500 last year, he can win this race in any given car in any given year. He just needs a mistimed yellow to not blow the legs off his chances.
I think the Pato Award will have those extra miles per hour and not make the business decision. I think Pato Award gets his face on the board wearing a trophy.
That was my pick. I was going to say Pato Award. I thought there's no way Pato will back out of it twice. Like, he knew that was his 500. I think he made a business call to think of the Ascot Cup in his overall season rather than risk it all on hanging it around the outside and hoping that Marcus plays ball. I think it's Pato Award this year. I really do think he is. Between him and Newgarden, are the two best oval runners in this series, and Newgarden struggles at super speedways.
You two just bet against Ganassi at the 500.
It's bold. It's bold, I admit, but you know, look, watch out this be the year that Dixon wins at a canter and finally gets that second 500 he's been dying for the last 16 years, or something silly like that. Who wins the Astor Cup?
My heart really wants to go with Colton Herta again, but
don't do it to yourself.
No, that's painful.
Because I have to feel like it's now or never if he wants to graduate to Formula One, Hololive production, Academy or whatever. Joseph Newgarden finally gets number 3 on the board.
Give me the double without any of the contract controversy. Alex Palou.
Wow. Palou doubles up. Wow.
I mean, all of the turmoil in that team, and he was still it for so much of the season.
And he only won once right at the end, too.
Yeah.
God. I was tempted to say Dixon here because he's just so good over a whole season. It's just... Power is right up there. There are 7 dudes in my head that can win this title. 7, and I've got to pick one of them. Ugh. I just have a feeling that he's going to put it all together this year. Scott McLaughlin.
I knew it the second you said it.
I just got a feeling he's got the road and courses, and he started out on ovals better than any rookie I've seen on ovals in quite some time. I think McLaughlin is going to take another leap forward, and I think McLaughlin can win the Astor Cup. Genuinely. Who was the one guy who could beat Palou on road and street courses last year? It was Scott McLaughlin.
And he did it twice. Yeah. Dre, you mentioned that there are 7 different dudes that could win the Astor Cup in your head. How many different winners are we going to get this season?
I'm the former bookies guy. I've set the over-under to 7.5.
Hammer that over. Hammer that over, baby.
You reckon over?
I'm going over as well.
How many did we get last year? Was it 7? I want to say it was 7.
I think we had a whole streak of like 7 different winners in the first handful of races.
But a lot of them got 1 or 2. I'm tempted to go under here. I really am, because I think the Ganassi-Penske block is so strong at the moment. That
Last year, race winners Scott McLaughlin, Joseph Newgarden, Pato O'Ward, Colton Herta, Marcus Ericsson, Scott Dixon, Alexander Rossi, and Alex Palou.
So we had 8 last year.
Yep.
And that was quite a down year by IndyCar standards.
I was going to say a lot of it was just the 3 Penske guys rampaging on the season.
That's why I'm tempted to go under, because Penske will still probably win 7 or 8 rounds before we even started. You know what? I'm going to take the under. I think Newgarden and McLaughlin might do what we got a lot of last year, where Newgarden won 5, and then McLaughlin might get 3 or 4, and then Power might get 1 or 2, or something like that. I think Penske could easily win 10 rounds, and then that makes it harder for everybody else to spread it out enough. That's what I think. I'm going to take the under on this one, believe it or not. I think there'll be 7 or less. I really do. Which is weird, because I've also picked Pato O'Ward to win the 500, but here we are.
Lots of contrarian takes on this podcast.
But that's what makes us us. It's beautiful. More contrarianism than Skip Bayless. Right, let's get out of here. IndyCar season starts on March 5th. At the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. For you Brits out there, Sky Sports F1 is the place. They have the full season. Every race will be on that channel. And now every Indy Next race will also be live on Sky Sports F1 this season. So if you're a Jamie Chadwick fan, God knows why, you could watch her too. Isn't that nice? So all of that on Sky Sports F1. America, they split their shit up all over the place. I'm not bothered to tell you where that is. Yeah.
Varying degrees of NBC and associated NBC networks.
Grab the cock on Peacock.
Oh my God, Dre.
You're welcome, everybody. You can't say I'm not wrong. That will do it for our IndyCar season preview. I cannot wait for this season to get started. It's going to be incredible. I cannot wait. Like I said, starts next Sunday, March 5th from St. Petersburg. Until then, I've been Dre Harrison. They've been RJ O'Connell and Cam Buckley. Until next time, see you at St. Pete. Sayonara.
I got in a chauffeured ride just to see Ricky Stenhouse Jr. troll his way to a Daytona 500 victory and then take the Harley Earl Trophy to Waffle House.
I think Kyle Kirkwood's going to win a race this year.
Wow.